Hi, everyone. It's Adam here from Youth Speak, and we are so excited to bring you another episode of the Speak Real podcast. We will be sharing one on one conversations with our youth speakers about their stories and lessons that they have learned throughout their life experiences. We believe that storytelling is the best way to empower youth and give them the platform to find their voice. Today, I'm here with Angelica and to talk about her journey and the struggles that she faced with mental health. So before we begin, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, Angelica?
Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica, but you can call me AJ for short. I'm more used to going by that. Um, I am 21 years old and I am a current university student. Fun fact about me, I love dogs and I am an extreme dog mom. And I have two dogs currently. And if you hear barking, it's because of them in the background. But yeah, it's a fun fact about me.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. How old are your dogs?
My first dog, his name is Milo. He's gonna be 6 in October. His birthday's on Halloween, actually,
Uh,
which kind of sucks because he hates the doorbell so much, and that's all he hears on his birthday. But yeah, he's like almost 6, 5 right now. And then my second dog, Ella, she's fairly new. She's, I think, a year and 6 months now.
awesome, awesome. They sound very, very cute.
Yeah, they really
Um,
are.
so, um, now that we're like kind of in these difficult times during like COVID and everything, I find that it's hard for us to kind of think positive thoughts about ourselves. So before we get started, I just want to ask you one question. What would be one word or one characteristic that you aspire to be?
What I aspire to be, I would say inspirational. Um, with my work now with Youth Speak, my main mission really is to inspire change in specifically the school systems today, since my
Mhm,
story and my advocacy is for anti-bullying.
mhm.
So I hope with my work now and my future work with Youth Speak, I can continue to hopefully be this inspiring figure for many children today who are undergoing bullying and all other mental health issues.
Awesome, awesome. And I feel like you're already at there since you're going to schools talking to kids about these sorts of subjects. So definitely, definitely you're on your way there. Um, and like on that topic, you kind of already touched on it a little bit, but what was the big thing that inspired you to become a youth speaker in the first place? And why do you think this is important?
So what really inspired me to become a youth speaker was really when I realized the power that my voice could have if I told my story to an audience that could be made of people going through the same things I went through with bullying, as well as an audience of those who might be causing harm to others or who are bystanders to bullying. Um, and just knowing that there are so many kids out there going through the same things I went through or worse, it just doesn't really sit well with me at all. It's something that really bothers me a lot. And um, that's just really what inspires me to become a youth speaker. Uh, I really want to strive to make my past stay in the past for the
Mhm.
many other kids who are targets of bullying just simply for being themselves. And I hope that with the power of my voice and storytelling, I could help inspire that change that needs to be made in our schools. During the time I experienced bullying, I always dreamt of a world where just people could accept me for who I am, and instead of hurting me, be nice to me. But because I experienced those things, I now strive in making sure that dream of mine can hopefully become a reality for youth today. And that just really what inspires me to do what I do.
That's super awesome. Like just not wanting other people to kind of go through the same experiences that you went through when you were younger that kind of caused you a lot of difficulties growing up. I think that's a really good reason to want to be a youth speaker and kind of spread this message. So I'm really happy that you're doing that. Um, yeah, like that's definitely a similar reason why I joined Youth Speak too. So I'm glad that you're on board. Um, And so, speaking of your story, what are some things that you share when you do go into these schools and talk to the kids about your story? What are some sort of experiences that you share, and like what's kind of like the messages that you give to them?
So one of the biggest things that I like to talk about when I'm speaking is one of my experiences with bullying, which I would say is like the biggest experience that I had that really caused me to go to this lowest point in my life, and that actually happened in grade 8. And just to summarize, really, me and my friend, we were doing this like it was like a the time in class where you're doing a project, and
Mhm.
we had to cut things out of magazines, and we only had one pair of scissors, so we were play fighting over the scissors and like tugging it back and forth.
Mhm.
And then I pulled the scissors out of my friend's hand, and I actually cut his thumb by accident.
Oh no.
Yeah, it wasn't that serious though. Like it was just like a little kind of like a cut that needed a band-aid, but it wasn't really,
Yeah.
really bad. And I was freaking out. I was so sorry. But then there's this person in grade 8 who witnessed what happened,
Mhm.
and this person is known to bully others,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And even before this, he was really someone who verbally bullied me a lot and laughed at me when he just looked at me. Um, and all that type of stuff. But he was actually, and I just thought he was capable of verbal bullying, but
Mhm.
turned
Mhm.
out he was the first person to show me what physical bullying was. And when he witnessed the situation, it was a really hard day for me because he tried to get the whole class's attention, and he screamed to the top of his lungs that I'm a freak, I'm a psychopath. And then he took this hardcover textbook from the desk beside me. It was a red Canadian history textbook. I remember it
Mhm.
that well because it's really still vivid in my mind.
Mhm.
And he just hit me across the head with it.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, it was really a sad, sad day for me. And other than the bullying, people who saw, not the whole class didn't see, but the people who did see, unfortunately, were bystanders that day. So I was completely alone in this whole situation. And I feel that after that day, it was just a cascade of negative effects that started to happen to me and my
Mhm.
mental health. For example, I started to hate school. I started to hate myself. I was extremely insecure. I ended up using negative coping tools in order to cope with what I was feeling. It was just a spiral of really bad things, and that was an example I give to the students when I speak, to show the severity of what being a bystander as well as bullying can cause
Mhm.
someone. um, and then I go on into my journey in high school, and again, right, because this happened in grade 8, the
Yeah.
experience I mentioned,
Mhm.
and then right, grade 9, grade 10. So that little span of time, I also lost best friends who cut me off,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because they found chances of popularity. And again, it was hard, but in a way, it was wrong, but in a way I understand, because me myself, we were just never the popular kids, we were never those
Mhm.
type of people. We all wanted to be like that. If, like, I'm sure it's still probably the same now, that's something we strive to be, the popular girls and popular people. So they found those chances that I didn't get a chance to have, and they left me for that, which
Mhm.
again, so made me cascade into so many other negative effects. And I became now aggressive in high school. I was very defensive. I had a lot of anger issues.
Mhm.
um, and I think that was a big part of my journey, to be honest, that I was so easily defensive when someone offended me. And I think it's because in elementary school, I was never defensive. I was so passive with what happened. I could never speak up. And that just angered me that I could never stand up for myself. So that caused me to cope with that in a negative way by being this angry person. So,
Yeah, it's almost
um,
like you went into like the opposite direction from like being too passive to being too aggressive.
yeah, it
Mhm.
really wasn't healthy in both ways. Um, so because of that, high school really wasn't a nice place for me, and
Mhm.
I then tell the students that I saw graduation and just leaving high school as my chance to finally be happy. Um, but the key thing about that part of my journey was that even after high school, I was still so upset and angry. I couldn't stop thinking about the experiences that happened to me.
Mhm.
Um, and it just, I thought, like, no, why am I still so mad? Like, I'm out of there, like I should be happy. And I realized that it was because I needed to start speaking up about what happened. I always held those emotions in and just showed aggression, or
Mhm.
just didn't do anything at all. And I finally started to tell my loved ones about what happened, and that was slowly starting to get me to heal. But then it still wasn't enough, because now that I'm not so angry about what happened, I'm angry, like what I said earlier, about the fact that this is still probably happening, or
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
happening in our schools today. And I realized that now that I'm speaking up to heal, I should now also start speaking up to inspire change and to educate the students that I talk to today about the extreme severity of bullying and the cause and the consequences that it causes on the victims of bullying.
Hmm.
So that's really what I hope to do when I tell my story to those students, to both inspire hope into those who are victims, as well as to tell those who are bullying or being bystanders to really reevaluate those actions and just try to take action. And that can really have such a big positive impact on someone's life.
Yeah, it all sounds very hard. And like, I feel like a lot of us don't realize that when we say something or when we do something, like, it might not even be as severe as what you went through in grade eight. It does have an impact on other people. And I think it's even harder for us to not realize that when we're kids.
Yeah,
Definitely. And I'm so glad that you're going and talking to kids about that so that, they can have like a real life example of like what that looks like and the effect that can have on a person. Um, and it's good that you kind of took it from, from being too passive to being too aggressive, and now it seems like you're kind of in the middle where now you're doing something, you're being proactive about it, being more assertive about it, and like now instead of being angry about what happened, it's kind of like you're more about wanting it to not happen to anybody else, which is great.
exactly.
Hmm. And so, after going through all those sorts of things, what were the main things do you feel like you learned through your experiences, your journey, and all that sort of stuff?
Mm, even though my journey was really tough for me and is something no one should ever have to go through, I did learn a lot of positive things from it. And I give credit to my hardships for allowing me to develop into the person I am today. And that's someone who wants more than anything to help end the suffering that bullying causes. Um, this journey really has taught me the true value of standing up for someone,
Hmm.
not being a bystander, and just being kind, and also how kindness can really change someone's life. Um, because of what I went through, all I longed for really was just for someone to be nice to me,
Hmm.
and just stand up for me when they saw me getting bullied. Um, Kindness really is something that we take for granted, and we also tend to forget how truly impactful it really is. Like, for example, till this day, and especially when I was younger, when someone simply just smiled at me, like, I just felt so warm inside. Like, it just a simple smile made me feel so warm, and I mean it when I say this. It will make completely make my whole day. So now I learned that if a smile has that power, a simple smile has that power, imagine what kindness can do and actually taking action can do. So, even though my journey was quite hard for me, I'm so thankful that allowed me to learn the true impact and value of kindness and how it can really change someone's life. And I hope to spread that same knowledge to every person I speak to so that we can hopefully create this cascade effect of positively impacting people's lives through kindness.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's like it's interesting. You kind of learn how if something bad can have such a big impact on somebody, the reverse can be so true too. It's that if you do something good for someone, if you do something kind, and like once again, like how we don't recognize how doing something negative can impact somebody. A lot of people might think, oh, what's the point of like doing nice things, but we don't realize that it can actually have such a large impact. So that's very, very important.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
mhm. And so here, what I just kind of want to ask you is if you could go back in time, if you can like talk to younger Angelica and tell her anything, or give her one piece of advice, what would you say to her?
Mm, so even though I understand how hard it is with the pressure of your peers and especially the media, I would still like to tell myself to not be so hard on yourself and how you look because you don't deserve that at all.
Mhm.
Because of my experiences and then from elementary bullying and then going to high school and in a teenager's life, like that's literally the peak point of being so prone to all these different things that could affect your self-love and self-esteem. And that's what happened to me. I just had no self-love at all. I was so insecure about how I looked. um I, I just really hate everything about myself, whether it be like my skin, my hair, my height, my body, just everything. And it was just so unhealthy. but the amount of insecurity I had was so self-destructive and harmful for me and my mental health. And no one deserves to go through that. And um, yeah, I would just like to tell my old self that I know and I understand how hard it is when people just can't be nice to you and bully you and just cause you to um, feel these negative things about yourself. But old AJ or old Angelica, don't let those people also give you the power to turn you into a bully as well.
Mhm.
Don't contribute to the pain that they're causing you by becoming your own bully. And instead, just truly, truly love yourself for who you are and how you look because you are a queen.
I love that so much. Love
Yeah,
that that like message of self, just self love. Like, cause yeah, once again, we can sometimes be our own bullies, like our own hardest bullies, and you know, other people can't really have that power over you unless you give it to them. Most
exactly.
definitely. Yeah, it's amazing. I love that. I love that whole message. And so the last question I have for you is not really related to your story, but like now that we're kind of in this pandemic sort of thing, if we're in this COVID-19 quarantine sort of situation, how are you staying mentally healthy during this whole COVID-19?
Yeah, it's been really rough to be honest. Like I'll admit I even went through some difficulties at the beginning when it was just we had to like just all of a sudden adapt to this whole new way of life with quarantine
Hmm.
and everything. And at the beginning I found myself having a lot of time in the quiet, just being able to have your mind take over you. And I found myself overthinking a lot about
Hmm.
things like what's going to happen in the future with school, my future with school, and just I tend to overthink a lot sometimes, and that caused me to really become anxious and stressed. So that was an effect COVID had on me in quarantine. But I found that trying to find an activity that kind of occupies your mind in a way, and but still
Hmm.
is really therapeutic was something that I've been doing recently to help not allow my mind to overthink and cause me to be stressed like that.
Hmm.
So I've actually gotten into playing the ukulele as well as gardening. I just love doing those now. It's so fun. And I think it's really important to find something that gives you those mental breaks out of
Hmm.
like doing online work or online school and just adapting to this whole new life because like I'll like it makes sense that before when let's say I'm commuting to school when I'm not in class I had all these mental breaks of walking around campus or going to eat
Hmm.
somewhere or commuting, and now it's just like your class is done, you end the Zoom call or whatever, and
Yeah.
you're just there, you know, just and you just start thinking and getting stressed. So I think it's really important to find that replacement of a mental break that we used to have before COVID. And I think it's really good to do so by finding a fun, therapeutic activity, but
Hmm.
also something productive that just keeps your mind busy.
Yeah, I totally agree with the whole like having to find mental breaks. Because like what I've been doing, I found the same problem, and what I've been doing is just kind of taking walks. Because I usually don't take walks, but yeah, it's usually because wherever I go, I have to commute like probably an hour, and I get that break. But now, once again, you were talking about like, I'm doing online classes and, you wake up, you're at class. When it's like, you don't get that little break in between where you're on the bus or you're walking to class. So I found that for me personally, like to stay mentally healthy, I definitely have to take those breaks. So I
Yeah,
totally agree
exactly.
with that.
With commuting too, like before, because I live pretty far from campus and like I used to hate it so much. I think I thought it was like absolutely so awful. I just wish I could just wake up and have class at my
Yeah,
fingertips. But now
same
I'm like,
here.
yeah. But now I'm like, wait, I'm kind of missing it a little bit, which is so crazy and weird.
Uh-huh, no,
Yeah.
me too. I miss my commutes, and I once again miss seeing other people, that sort of thing. Like even if I had to go an hour away, um, at least I had like, an hour to myself to listen to music or listen to podcasts, that sort of thing. So I kind of have to take that time for myself right now. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing all of that information with us, and like all the ways that you stay mentally healthy. And also thank you for sharing your story too and being on this podcast. Yeah, before we end the podcast, I'd like to give acknowledgement to our sponsor, TD Bank Group, for the support on this project. And once again, I'd like to say thank you, Angelica, for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sorry.